Well, he's at it again. Since 2021, he's pretended the economic performance of the United States during his first term was, quote, the greatest ever, which is a bold-faced lie and ignores the $7.8 trillion of debt he then saddled us with, which will take decades to pay off if we're lucky, and ignores the fact that he left America on the cusp of economic collapse at the end of his first term, partially due to his disastrous response to COVID. And now he's talking about the economic performance of the U.S. before he started the Iran war. Can someone tell him you don't win a trophy because you're ahead in the fourth inning, but lose the game in a blowout because of all of the errors you make?
Economic legacy is rarely as simple as a single statistic or a single moment in time. A president who presides over a period of growth while adding nearly $8 trillion to the national debt is not delivering prosperity. He is borrowing it from future generations and presenting the bill as an achievement. The debt accumulated during the first Trump term is not an abstraction. It is a structural weight on the federal budget that limits what future administrations can spend on healthcare, infrastructure, education, and emergency response. When that debt is then followed by a second term that triggers new economic disruptions through tariffs and military conflict, the compounding effect on American households is not a political talking point. It is a measurable reality showing up in grocery receipts, energy bills, and retirement accounts across the country.
A report just came out that 23 states have officially entered a recession, and meanwhile, the Trump family continues to profit off of the Genius Act and rake in billions off of crypto wealth. Wake up, America! He's making himself, his family, and his friends more rich while our country goes into a recession. Back in July, Trump passed the Genius Act, which was initially made to put more regulations on crypto and on stablecoins. Stablecoins are a type of digital currency that is pegged to the US dollar. And one of the important provisions around stablecoins is that they are not able to issue yields, but of course corporations and billionaires have found a way around that. And Trump called the Genius Act prioritizing consumer protection, strengthening the US dollar's reserve, and bolstering national security, but it's actually putting money at risk and it's weakening our banks. And here is exactly how this impacts the working class. The Genius Act actually reduces regulations on crypto while simultaneously encouraging Americans to take their money out of banks and put them into cryptocurrency, because Trump says it's fun and you'll get rich fast.
Yeah, we voted for Trump because he promised while he was campaigning like a million times that when he got into office, he was going to bring down prices, bring down grocery prices. The inflation has been high ever since COVID, and he promised he would bring that down. But it's obvious to me now that that was not true. Egg prices have skyrocketed. The bird flu is killing all the birds, and he doesn't seem to be doing anything about that. He's stopping disease communications from the disease centers in America, pulled us out of the WHO. Like, how does that help anything? And yeah, all he's been doing is taking away rights and freedoms, or trying to. He's not doing anything about the economy. So yeah, we totally regret our vote at this point. We've had a really tough time here in North Carolina. Half of my house got washed away in Hurricane Helene, and I applied for FEMA assistance and we got approved. But now Trump is canceling FEMA and emergency assistance to people. He's also canceled Medicaid for my children. I know they said they put a halt on his freezing of the funds, but the Medicaid portal is still not working. So we can't access anything for our children's health insurance.
MAGA, yeah, you. Here it comes. Your FAFO moment is underway. Officially underway. Moment. It's going to be more than a moment for you. Here's the deal. Trump officially announced that his tariffs are going to be going into effect. And as a foreseeable consequence to that, the stock market tanked. All of the markets tanked. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the first domino to topple. And you will FAFO. You may not believe it. You may not want to believe it. You may be in total denial about it, but you're going to be in a world of hurt. You guys, we have been warning you forever.
The account from North Carolina captures something that policy debates rarely convey with enough clarity: the experience of being hit by multiple crises simultaneously with no safety net in place to absorb any of them. A family that lost half their home to a hurricane, received FEMA approval, and then watched that assistance get canceled is not experiencing a policy inconvenience. They are experiencing the collapse of the social contract in real time. When healthcare coverage for children becomes inaccessible through a portal that no longer functions, the administrative failure and the policy failure become indistinguishable in their impact. The child does not get the care either way. The broader economic warning embedded in this hook is equally significant. When tariffs are announced and markets react immediately with sharp declines, that reaction is not partisan commentary. It is the aggregate judgment of investors, businesses, and economic analysts processing the likely consequences of the policy. Supply chains that depend on imported goods, manufacturers that rely on global markets, and consumers whose purchasing power is already strained by inflation do not absorb tariff costs quietly. Those costs move through the economy and land on the same households that were promised relief.
My kids' daycare went up, can't afford the cost of food, using credit cards for everyday expenses, no money left after their bills are paid. Pretty much just a whole bunch of financial mess.
We changed presidents at the beginning of the year.
We did.
And the guy who moved into the White House said that he was going to fix it. Several times he said it would be easy.
Absolutely.
Has he fixed it?
Absolutely not. I'm definitely waiting for him to fix it.
Jones is a 3-time Trump voter, but she says he has simply failed to keep his promise to lower the cost of living.
I'm very let down by that. Very, very let down because I feel like it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, we voted for Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024. We live in the Florida Panhandle, and we thought that this would be good for our business. But we're finding out now that we were wrong, and I want to publicly say that we are regretting our votes at this point. Most of our workers are from Mexico, and they're good, hard workers. I talked to a few of them, and they said they were just too scared to come back to work because of all the raids. Our construction company's likely to go out of business now, and we don't know what we're going to do, but we're never voting for a Republican again.
Like, I was all for fucking Trump, dude. I was all for Trump. And then hearing this whole fucking thing of, like, now with Trump passing the law that if your kid's if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child. How can he file and get all the fucking money when I'm the one taking care of them? He's been MIA for like 7 months. What?
I might lose my farm because of the government. I got in bed with the government. I was promoting getting in bed with the government because I thought it was a good idea. So, NRCS, conservation planning. So they had a program out there called the EQIP program. I thought it was a great program. We got a contract with them for $240,000. So we signed a contract with them for $240,000. And so now I have $80,000 out of my pocket that I didn't have to spend. So the $80,000 that we have is supposed to go to our farm loan.
This is so crazy that we voted for Trump. We trust him with the word that he promised us Latinos. This is crazy that starting next week, multiple cities will be hitting immigration.
They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
15 states that most rely on federal funding for its public schools in 2022 all voted for Trump.
And I voted for President Trump.
I mean, you're an educator. You didn't vote for Trump eliminating federal funds.
No, I did not vote for that.
They took my wife.
This man who wished not to be identified says his wife is from Venezuela and has lived in the United States for a few years. President Donald Trump arrived at his Trump National Golf Resort in Doral Saturday. This man hopes this message makes it to him.
I get a chance to talk to you, man. Yo, please, man, let's work something out. So, you, man, let me keep my wife here in the United States, man. She deserves to be here, man.
A construction business losing its entire workforce because workers are too frightened to come to their jobs. A farm on the verge of collapse because a signed government contract worth nearly $250,000 is not being honored. A family separated because immigration enforcement reached into a community it was explicitly told it would not touch. These are not policy abstractions. They are the specific, named consequences of specific promises that were made to secure votes and then abandoned once the election was won. Farmers, construction workers, educators, and Latino communities were each told something specific about how this administration would treat them. Each of those communities is now describing an outcome that directly contradicts what they were told. That is not a matter of political disappointment or misaligned expectations. It is a record of broken commitments made deliberately to win support from communities whose interests were never the actual priority.
Yeah, I want to jump on the bandwagon of saying that I regret my vote for Trump. My whole family does. My husband and I own a farm in Ohio that was funded through the Inflation Reduction Act, which Biden signed into law. And now the executive orders from Trump are rolling back all of that funding for us. So now we can no longer afford our farm. And when all that happened, it was like a lightning bolt hit my brain. And I realized that I shouldn't just be voting for myself, that Trump's policies and EOs are hurting millions of people. But it took it affecting me personally to understand what I had done was wrong. And I think it's really important for anyone to come out who voted for him and is now negatively impacted by the executive orders, or maybe you have friends or family, especially in minority communities, who are being very heavily impacted by what's going on right now. So yeah, I think it's time for us to stop being so selfish maybe and to vote for what's best for the country instead of just in our tiny little bubble, because we're all in the same boat now and we're all equally screwed by our new president.
The acknowledgement that it took a personal crisis to produce political clarity, and the willingness to name that as a form of selfishness that contributed to broader harm represents the kind of accountability that democratic participation actually requires. It is easy to vote based on what you believe will benefit your own household. It is considerably harder to extend that calculation to communities you do not belong to, whose struggles you do not see directly, and whose warnings you may have dismissed as partisan messaging. What makes this account particularly significant is that the farm being lost here was funded by a program created by the previous administration, a program that was working, that was delivering on its commitments, and that has now been eliminated by executive order as part of a broader rollback of climate and agricultural investment. The policy choice was not made because the program was failing. It was made because of what the program represented politically, and the family that built its future around that program is now paying the price for a decision made in Washington with no consideration for the contract it broke.
Donald Trump loves to tell everybody that the U.S. economy is better than ever. He loves to tell us that prices have gone down this year, even though not only can we see that prices have gone up every time we go to a store to buy something, but also the data, the statistics that have come out from private businesses and from the government show that actually prices have gone up. It's quantifiable. It's not just somebody saying, yeah, prices have gone up. They've literally pinpointed the number. Groceries have gone up 1.4% as a whole. The price of beef has gone up 36%. Coffee's up 18%. Eggs are still up. All of it has gone up in quantifiable numbers, yet Donald Trump repeatedly tells us, nope, it's not happening. Everything's down. The economy's great. Inflation doesn't exist anymore, even though it's gone up month over month. Every month for the last 9 months, actually, inflation has risen. And voters are no longer buying his BS, including Republican voters. Only 20%, according to the latest polling data, of Trump voters, only 20% of them believe that prices have gone down and the economy is good. The rest of them say, no, prices have gone up. Let me read you some of this data. And this, of course, is from multiple different polls. We've got a CBS News YouGov poll. We got a Marquette University Law School poll. We got a Fox News poll. Everything is just god-awful, but all of it shows that the vast majority of the public is not buying this man's lies about the economy anymore. Only 32% think the economy is good.
Trump said that inflation has been defeated. Childcare costs are down. Someone was literally just saying that $3,400 a month is normal for childcare for a 5-month-old. There's nothing normal about paying $3,400 for fucking childcare. Bro, that's more than my rent, and my rent is nearly $3K. When I was a full-time math specialist, making $43 an hour full-time, my checks before taxes were like $34, $40. There is no way that me, a math specialist, would have been able to afford putting my child in daycare just to work. It would have been like a whole fucking, literally more than my check. There's nothing down about this economy. Groceries are asinine. This man
who delivered this administration its mandate. Prices down, not true. Confirmed by government data and private sector reporting. Inflation defeated, not true, with inflation rising month over month for the better part of a year. FEMA assistance honored. Not true, with approved applicants watching their assistance canceled after a natural disaster. Government contracts fulfilled. Not true, with farmers and conservation program participants absorbing the financial loss of agreements the government unilaterally abandoned. Healthcare access maintained. Not true, with Medicaid portals offline and coverage inaccessible for children across the country. Each of those broken promises has a name and a face attached to it. The 3-time voter in North Carolina whose house was washed away and whose children have no healthcare access. The construction company owner in Florida whose business is collapsing because his workforce is too frightened to show up. The Ohio farmer whose federally funded operation is being dismantled by executive order. The Latino family whose documentation status was promised protection and whose spouse is now gone. The math specialist who earns $43 an hour and still cannot afford childcare for a 5-month-old. These are not statistics. They are the human consequences of a political movement that was built on specific promises to specific communities and then governed in a direction that served entirely different interests. The polling data in Hook 6 confirms that this is no longer a partisan interpretation of events. 65% of Americans, including a substantial share of Republican voters, now say this administration's policies are making prices worse. When that level of consensus exists across party lines, the question is no longer whether the promises were broken. The question is what accountability looks like now that they have been. And the question worth sitting with is this: when the gap between what was promised and what was delivered is this wide and this well documented, what does it take for that record to finally determine what happens next?